Good morning. It is a pleasure and an honor for me to open this conference devoted to the energy and environment in the framework of the event Ravenna 2011, and this is a conference that will examine some important areas of interest in the field of research, but not only, also education, and especially some very deep attention will be paid to the problems affecting the coastal areas. The main motivation of this conference are to analyze the difficulties encountered in public acceptance, and which is due in many cases to the gap between knowledge and perception. We will also discuss the need to increase the efforts aimed at reducing the scientific illiteracy. This is a factor very important because there are very high difficulties, to get approved some project because of this gap existing between perception and reality. The coastal areas is a focus of this project. We have two images. One is representing nuclear reactors very close to the coast, and the meaning is that human activities can affect in a very big extent the health of the environment, which is particularly fragile in the area near the coasts. And we see also that in some cases the effects on natural resources is due to natural phenomenon, such in the case of coastal erosion, which is a problem affecting many of our coasts, especially producing big damages on the beaches where there is a big market of vacations. The main motivation of global energy will be analyzed, giving particular attention to the accident of Fukushima. After this accident, which was not really the accident of the reactor, the big effect was due to the tsunami. The wave of tsunami was destroying and killing a lot of people, but there was unfortunately also a power station that was affected with some release of radioactivity, but main attention should be given to the damages produced by the tsunami wave. So there is the representation of some energy sources, renewable, wind and photovoltaic, but we have to consider that for many years we will still rely on thermal power station to produce electricity. So this is a very general description of the conference, divided into three areas. The first area is devoted to education and literacy and will be presented by Professor Giorgio Giacomelli and Filomena Cardoso. They will explain how it is important to reduce the gap between the technological development and scientific literacy, and at the same time how it is important to develop educational programs in the schools, especially for young generation, because the approach to the problems dealing with energy and environment must be explained since the very low ages of the new generation. In such a way, probably the acceptance of the new technology will be easier. The second area is the coastal areas. We will have the presentation of Marco Abbiati, professor having the teaching activity here in Ravenna, who is expert of coastal ecosystem, and it will introduce the problems given by different human activities on the possible damages of the biodiversity, especially in the strip very close to the shoreline. Professor Angel Del Vals is an expert in the field of environmental risk of highly anthropized coastal areas, and will describe especially the efforts, research efforts in the field of contamination of sediments, and also new problems connected to the capture and storage of CO2. Pedro Fernandez, working at the Universidad Politécnica de Madrid, will be explain how an area close to the coast could be developed based on the criteria of sustainability, and this will close, the part dealing with coastal areas. The last one, which is another very up-to-date problem that it is now concerning many countries around the world, is dealing with energy policy. And we will have three speakers. Professor Marco Sumini, teaching at the University of Bologna engineering faculty, will consider what is the energy panorama after the Fukushima accident, and what is the effect that this accident has produced all over the world. And Enrique Toscano, former researcher at the Joint Research Center of Karlsruhe of the European Union, will give some information and will develop some consideration about the effect energy is producing on the environment, and especially taking into account the very crucial and critical equilibrium of our planet, and the effect that energy sources, renewable energy sources, can have on the thermodynamical equilibrium of the planet. Finally, we will have the description of the Turkish policy on environment and energy program in Turkey, and this could be a starting point for a future collaboration with Turkey, which is one of the countries that are considering the possibility to enter into the European Union. So I think we will now follow our works in our conference. I want to thanks very much all the people that they gave their availability for this conference, and I also hope that this could be the starting point of collaboration that will involve all the people participating in this meeting. Thank you very much. So now we will attend to the presentation of Professor Giacomelli, Professor Emeritus of the University of Bologna. Will speak about the scientific literacy and how this aspect has a big influence on the behavior of people in front of new choices in the field of technological development. Thank you very much.
So I will be concerned with scientific illiteracy and technological development. The scientific and technological knowledge of Italian population in general is limited and often deformed by social and political interests. Most newspapers do not provide correct information, and in the energy field often confuse energy, power, efficiency and costs. Now, even the ministries make major mistakes, and one major mistake happened recently. This is an official note which you can find in the Ministry of Education, Science and Technology by the minister. And if I go to the red part, which is to the construction of the tunnel between CERN and the Gran Sasso laboratories, through which was done the experiment, Italy contributed with a sum of about 45 million euros. This is nonsense because there is no such a tunnel. The neutrinos can go through the Earth, and the 45 million euros, one does not understand to what they are for. So this is, and also this is written in very bureaucratic language, which is typical of ministerial staff, and so it does not help very much. Immediately I touch on the NIMBY effect, not in my backyard, and because of this effect, it seems that more than 300 Italian projects are either stopped or delayed by many no from protesters, ambientalists of different colors, who find support even in some courts. The delayed stopped projects range from the high-velocity project in Val di Susa. This is a European program, is where one wants a connection between East and West, so it is a total nonsense to object to it. And to the power station at Porto Tolle, the regasifier of Brindisi, and some industrial projects like the Fiat projects and many others. The NIMBY effect involved also the network of radio emitters used by portable phones. Nobody wanted an antenna above his house or close to his house, but in this case the Italian love for this technology seems to have stopped this effect, and practically one goes ahead. Everybody wants to use telephones, small portable telephones, and this effect is stopped magically. In fact, we need a cultural change if we do not want to be left behind the emerging nations like China, India, Brazil, Korea, and many others. This is a college of no thanks NIMBY effects, written unfortunately in Italian. If you go to the right, is that let us stop the regasifier. No gas offshore, not here, not anywhere else. If you go on the top, is I do not finance the incinerators. And the incinerators, a thing to refute. If you biogas, no thanks. And you go almost everywhere. At the end, for instance, is written offshore, no, grazie, no thanks in Livorno, no TAV, no Mose, no Mose is in Venice to stop the high water to come in, no bridge, no coke in Civitavecchia. And it goes essentially to almost every field. And this gives a major problem in the continuation of these works. And at least it gives a delay and it adds costs. The energy problem. Much energy is needed to make food, heat houses, transportation, for health assistance, and raise globally the quality of life. Most used energy comes from fossil fuels. Italy uses one of the most expensive mixer and imports electric energy from nuclear plants in France, Switzerland, Slovenia, all over the northern part of Italy. Italy is the only nation which stopped all its work in nuclear plants immediately after a referendum. In all other nations, they waited 10, 20 years, 30 years to make sure that they had the money to repay the initial costs and to pay for the dismantling. All Italian stations don't have anything for the dismantling, so we will have to find extra money. This is like rich people would do. You pay no consideration to the possible consequences. On the other hand, the fossil fuels cannot last for a long life, and they modify the environment, they produce a greenhouse effect, acid rains, etc. In particular, we have to reduce CO2. Europe requests to reduce fossil fuels, increase renewable energies, and eventually pay a green fee, or it is called probably C-friendly, which is smaller for if one increases renewable energies, or if one has nuclear reactors. The nuclear reactors in France in particular are considered that they don't produce any CO2, so they are considered as renewables for this tax. I will show some examples from China and other nations where there is an increase of power stations, also nuclear, and also fast nuclear reactors, which use uranium-238, which could be very abundant, very low cost, and can be used for several thousands of years, while uranium-235 or the present reaction cannot last very long. This is an example. Of that the nations which had like Russia, in the United States, etc., they firmed an agreement to essentially burn 1/2 or more of their nuclear weapons. This is a very good thing. The Russians use for burning this a fast nuclear reactor, which up to this moment had no accident whatsoever. And China bought small nuclear reactors from Russia, just to do not this, but something else. Actually, China bought the license for American reactors, and then for European reactors, and also for Russian reactors. And they plan to build in the next few years 10, 20, 30 reactors, and for the future they will go to Chinese reactors, what is called the fourth generation, and they will be probably more independent of almost everything. Here is an example of the reactors which are built. If we go to the left, there are 2 reactors in France. To the right, there are 4 reactors with a very large power in China, very close to Hong Kong, and then 4 reactors in Korea. These reactors are also used to generate a large amount of neutrinos, and the main reason for us physicists is to have this availability. And so lots of groups from all over the world go to have experiments in these places because they have reactors very appropriate for the use, very high power, and this probably will have an interesting results from these reactors. Now, nuclear energy is well known. Nobody likes it, and in particular after the Fukushima experiment, there was a disaster. Fukushima experiment was broadcast everywhere, and one knows certainly it was a bad accident, and it was not the earthquake which caused the disaster. All the reactors stopped immediately at the earthquake, but the problem was the water which came, and the reactors were a little bit too low. The reactors did not suffer disasters from the water, but from the pumps which the electricity, they were stopped by the tsunami, and so they could not cool the reactors anymore. And this caused a major problem, and probably the big mistake was they had electricity coming only from one line. They should have had an electricity coming from the other side, so as if you break one side, the other one would have been okay. These reactors are old and probably they will not come into operation anymore. But we do not have enough information, for instance, that at the same time there was also a petroleum refining plant damaged. And this is the accident which is shown. This was not shown almost at all, only a little bit on the TV. And during the same days, in Germany, one of the oil tankers which goes into the rivers and canals burned. And these oil tankers there are very many in Germany, and this is a disaster which happened. Also this did not receive enough publicity. It appears once in La Repubblica, in the Italian journal Repubblica, and then one never saw this again. Then we have to reconsider the fossil fuel reduction and increase of renewable energies. There is a general demand to reduce consumption of fossil fuels, increase renewable energies, make projects for energy saving. At present, the contribution of renewable energy is small, but there is a considerable increase of new plants of renewable energies, mainly due to government and local financial incentives. Without the incentives, the increase will be small. All these projects are positive and lead to an employment increase, but one has to pay attention to possible new problems. In general, the new sources require larger spaces and may be more expensive. Some photovoltaic and biomass plants are placed on good land, and this could lead to an increase of food prices. So if you go by train, now and then you find in a vineyard a small piece of land where there are the photovoltaic things. This to me look wrong. Instead, one finds lots of places where there are industry things with flat tops houses, where this would be the appropriate place to place the solar panels. And there also has a nice impression, and when this will be finished, completed, they will throw these things in the country and produce another problem. There is no a need to make a progress in the efficiency of the photovoltaic panels, most of which are presently made in China. So since the photovoltaic panels need energy to make them, so fortunately this is done by China, not by us who buy the Chinese panels. The other thing, probably this logical consequence is use more bicycles. This is our power in our houses. And if you have a TV, which could be made by two people riding bicycle, clearly impossible. But this is the sketch. This is also dishwashers. Many more people are needed. So we need things. So the first important item is to try to have these things at low power. And the second thing is that you don't need a 5 TV in the house and turn on all of them. It's enough one, choosing the one which uses less power. And this is an American thing. The world needs an oil change. And a general attitude should be done, because this is a real problem. Save energy. There are many projects to save energy, only few really operative. Low energy consumption lamps. The number is increasing fast, but there are some aesthetical problems for people who like all the chandeliers. We were discussing in a room like this of the problems of save energy for a conference which we had in Bologna. And there was the lady of the house who was the chairperson. And she had a chandelier like this, very beautiful. And she asked how she could save energy. So he said, change all the lamps in this chandelier to low power, low consumer lamps. He said, this is unthinkable. I'll never do such a thing, because the chandelier is so nice. So there are aesthetical reasons against this. Then the other thing, you should turn off the lights and the electric equipment when you leave a room. But this is difficult for certain people. For me, it's impossible. Only my mother-in-law was following me in every room I went to turn off the lights. But the young people is even more serious, because they use all sorts of electrical equipment which use energy. The other important item is reduce house heatings. The first thing to do is to improve thermal insulation. Then make an infrared study of the walls to indicate spots with large energy losses. The final solution may be a biohouse, that is a house specifically designed for low energy consumption, anti-seismic, etc. Probably at this moment, this is an expensive house. District heating, teleriscaldamento, and essentially also one should recycle everything. This is a district heating. This is apparently is a very nice thing, which saves energy, because you use it somewhere, a plant using low things which are useful, with high efficiency. But you look at I ask the people, and they live in an apartment house, each one wants his own power. They like very much to be independent from the others. This usually brings very high cost for these things, and they are all of low efficiency. So these are dangerous. So the population doesn't like it. This is an infrared thermography to decide where they are, the spots where you lose power, and you should somehow insulate better. This is a general thing of renewable energies. So in general, they are all very good, but one has to pay attention. Hydroelectricity. In Italy, it has been used on the past. We don't have any more large rivers, etc., where to apply it. We can only do small projects. Then the wind. The wind is very good if you are in the border between the Atlantic Ocean and the European continent. There you can have an efficiency of 20 or slightly more. All over, you don't reach this efficiency, and therefore you have to be careful. Then geothermal power. In Italy, we can have geothermal power. We can do much more in certain regions. And for instance, some regions do this on a small scale, but very. Then there is solar panels. It's a pity that we do not make our own solar panels, but it's convenient because the solar panels presently need very much energy to be made. Then solar thermic. This is going ahead more slowly, etc. Biomasses. But this is going at a high rate too. Etc. One can continue. So each one of them has a certain problem which can be cured. The next item is what is the popularization of science, divulgation of science. In high school and university lectures are given a precise scientific information to the students of specific fields. Scientific research and technological developments are increasing part of our everyday life, but both increase at fast rates, and people of average education have difficulties in following the developments and the technical terms used. It is important to give correct information to the population as a whole and to the young people in particular. There are some journals which have good scientific and technological articles, and there are periodicals for the popularization of science. There are now several websites with the same purposes. The websites may have some advantages because they have more availability. The Scienza Giovane is one of such sites organized by teachers and researchers of the University of Bologna in almost all fields of science and technology. It is organized in articles and different fields, written specifically for non-specialist people. It has short news and each year organizes a special event. This is the site, probably cannot be seen very well. On the left there is the list of arguments. Notice that there is the effect of tsunami. Notice there is the save energy. Then also interesting is the artificial intelligence. And in this article is shown that the Japanese in particular are organizing footballs between robots, with the idea that in 10-15 years there will be robots intelligent enough to beat a normal team made by humans. Then I go to the next one. This clearly there is also popularization concerning the structure of matter. So in simple words, atoms, nuclei, protons, quarks. And in atom, notice that it looks quite empty. But we go to the proton, to the right, is almost empty. There are 3 dots, 3 small particles, the quarks, nothing else. But if you go and see the internal fields internally, it's like in the bottom, an increasing number of exchange items, virtual exchange items, even virtual antiparticles, which are there for a fleeting moment and eventually go away. So this is also discussed, it is interesting to know. This is, I don't know if you can see well, this is an exceptional picture of three birds, which at that moment look like the eyes and the mouth of a human being, so a smile from the sky. From the sky. It's just to show that after all we can smile, and we have to have things of this sort. The last picture is the sun. We place all the faults on the, say, the increasing heat, etc., to us and to the earth. But no, what we read, the sun is there. Is the main source. If there is a small fluctuation in the sun, there's consequences for us. So you have to consider also this. And look, for instance, here, the two big flames, which are, each one is much larger than the earth, and which can give problems. They can give some cosmic rays, low energy cosmic rays, will reach the earth. And the study at CERN indicates that these cosmic rays produce some more clouds. And so it could be an important factor. Also this you have to consider. But in general it's very important to consider the sun, because even a small change in the heat from the sun may produce a large consequence. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Giacomelli, for your very interesting presentation. And we are now a little bit closer to the knowledge, what is around our picture around. I want to recommend to the people attending to this meeting to take into account the possibility to be client of Scienza Giovane. So other universities, I think they can adopt and give also contribution for this very interesting tool that will increase the education in the basic knowledge dealing with physics, chemistry, and so on. Now we have the next speaker is Filomena Cardoso, coming from the University of Aveiro. We have been collaborating in a European project, and she is professor at the university, is very active in the field of coastal areas, and I think it is very sensitive also to this problem of education of new generation. Thank you very much, Filomena.
Well, thank you to the invitation, and I have to congratulate all the organizers for this kind of meeting. It's quite important, I think, for not for this meeting specifically, but for what's going on in the road, in the street, with the other people from the city and those who are coming in. So I'm going to speak about young generations environmental education, and my road to deal with this process is based on 3 points. One, just a few moments to try to make some starting point to try to show you the difference between environmental education and education for sustainable development, and why there's this mix-up between these two concepts and how they are linked and how we can deal with them together. The other point is the challenges in environmental education with new issues, new emerging issues, and however the old issues still being a problem to be solved. And then I think we are going to stay more time sharing some experience that in our university we have been developing and still are developing, and already some lessons we learned about this process. So in the first point, try to make the difference between environmental education and education for environmental education for sustainable development. since almost we can say the meeting of Johannesburg, we have an emphasis in the public opinion about the education for sustainable development, and we have a lower interest on environmental education itself. Or sometimes we have this mix-up. We talk about education for sustainable development, and what we present in outputs is environmental education. Why this mix-up? Well, at least we can say there are two starting points for this misconfusion about these concepts. First one is because environmental education is an old concept in terms of programs and policies. We can say that it starts on the 70s. Even we can go further in time and see references of environmental education in the 60s, in the 50s. But it starts like international program in a broader way in the 70s. Education for sustainable development is just a new concept. It's a concept that starts in the Rio de Janeiro meeting, and then was not well understood and just coming up on the spotlights after Johannesburg. And because sustainable development has these three main characteristics, environment, economy and social, and because environment is inside of this sustainable development, and because it's older, the first outputs on education for sustainable development, the most visible ones, are environmental education. So sometimes people are thinking about education for sustainable development, but they are presenting environmental education outputs. Well, I think that's no problem at all. In fact, if we think in the end what could be our profit in the process, if we understand environment has a way, the place where we live as a community project, and not only as nature or only as a resource, we can say that they can go side by side. But the problem is that even environmental education in starting point starts with different perspectives, because the concept of environment is not homogeneous one. We can find environment as nature, and all the projects of environmental education going on in the focus of to respect nature, protect nature, appreciate nature. Anyway, try to get something that we lost already. This is very common in developed societies. But for instance, environment as a place to live, learn about the environment and care about it, is more connect with a perspective where the link between the societies and the nature as the main source of livelihood is still in place. So, because of this complexity in the concept, we turn out with different types of environmental education, and this will reflect. I will pass the next slide because it's just something about educational paradigms, and we turn out to sustainable development concepts linked with the concepts of environment, and turning in educational programs quite different in itself. So, in the end, I'm not going to go further and deep inside the process, because I think it's more interesting to see what we can do about it. But in the end, we can say that, and some critics say that environmental education is losing space for education for sustainable development. It's not my perspective. I think that we cannot have education for sustainable development if we don't strong enough scientifically the environmental education program. So environment, if it's just one side of triangle, I think is if we put strengthening in these sides, we say that environment is a very strong side of the triangle. So, in the end, we can say if we in this process trying to fix up the connections between environmental education and education for sustainable development, how are our strong challenges in the beginning of the 21st century? And I can say that there are two types of challenges. One linked with the business, educational business. How can we, by education, improve, make stronger the process to achieve sustainable development and to protect and to get better services and better uses of the environment? And how can we do it? In the end, is how efficient can we be by the educational programs at different levels, since the preschooler level until the higher level and the learning along life. But also we need to use also the process. We are not learning about sustainable development. We are learning for sustainable development. And this learning turns not only to know about it, but to go deep in it, to act, to have the outputs. So we are turning from the place of education transmission of concepts, who are still quite important. They are the foundations to understand the things, but to train and get skills or to the people who are going to intervene in the society. And the other kind of challenges is the business of the environmental business. We still have the same problems, biodiversity loss, degradation of soils, degradation of water, whatever. We have still the problems that we face in 70s and 60s. But we have some emerging problems, and one of those I think it's why we can say that in the political agenda, in the general agenda, we say energy, energy, energy. Energy is the most is the spotlight of the environmental issues right now. And why? Well, Professor Giacomelli said it before me, because we need to save energy, because we need to find new sources of energy. I'm sorry. Okay. And make that energy more friendly to the other resources of the environment. So, why do we need to save energy? Why do we need to find other sources of energy? Well, because our economic system is based on a source of energy with already at the end, the turning point of the oil system and the provide of energy is already finished. We are just in the slowing the process of extraction, even if we are finding new spots to extract oil, but we need to diversify. And also, when we see the diversification we know right now, we look to wind energy, we look to solar energy, and I say this is old sources of energy. Yesterday we talked about the molinos de Don Quixote. Well, this is something that in the rural areas is very common to profit from the wind energy to provide activity. So this is not a new energy, this is an old energy. What is new is the scientific input that we have done to profit in a high level of this energy. So it's quite important in those terms that we are open to see all kinds of energies, but we put our own effort in order to make it better. So all these problems are based on a need to respond to the lack of fuel energy. Also, I think is still important the need to provide water and also the problems with lack and excess of water in the world, and fixed all our bad heritage. We have a planet in several parts. We have a planet with a hill planet. We need to fix the wrong things we have done along centuries. So we need to deal with that. We have a bad heritage in terms of the use we made from resources and the planet itself. So I think these two kinds, in terms of environmental education, are these two kinds of problems or issues that are raising, and inside of them we have several other issues. So because of that, we are in our university for a long time ago, and I think it's not, sometimes I am too pragmatic, but I think that it's needed to make the right statements in certain points. We do this because we need to capture students. Okay, so there's a need for us. We are not doing it for solidarity. Of course, we need it. We are also, because we have our citizenship process inside ourselves. But we need students. So we need to capture students. How we capture students? If our business is education, is scientific education, how we can be in terms of marketing, how we can be so attractive that they want to come to us and learn with us. So this is the starting point. In the beginning of the 90s, is starting a process of Open Week, scientific and technology, science and technology Open Week in the university, and we share that with public in general, but also and mainly with the students from basic schools, lyceums and things like that. So in our department, and mainly in terms of territorial planning, we have also a competition inside of the university. Scientists like physicists, chemists, biologists, they have their own labs. They can be very attractive to young children to come in. They go to the lab, they play scientists, they just make ice, they turn things, water in colors, well, all the scientific process going on. But if we want to tell the children what's going on in the real life, it's difficult to make a workshop about it. So our driving forces is the opportunity, the Open Week, but also the challenge. We need to compete with our own colleagues to capture students. So we start with one program. Tá-se bem à beira-mar is a Portuguese word to see. We feel good at seaside shore, and we target 3 levels of students. Well, we try to address the same issue: coastal planning, coastal resources use, and integrated management for different approach, driven by public age and school level. And with that process, we try to make some complementary approach between the concepts, the knowledge, in order to make them, the little ones, come the next year to see what's going on. The other program we just put it in force this year. It's quite new. It's Eco 24 hours, and is based on raising each one awareness for the use we made in the daily life in terms of energy, water, resource, something like that, but with the scientific knowledge inside. So the target is it's the students from the higher levels of medium education, level education, and the other one is a starting one, campus exemplar. It's something like sustainable university campus, but with another concept. I'm trying to learn by example, by involving the students who are already in the university in approaching all the management issues that are going on in the process. Okay, está-se bem à beira-mar, feel good at seashore. First, the title. The title was made because at that moment, in 2004, there's a very common song, a rap song in Portuguese. They say "Tá-se bem, tá-se bem." So we found it has a very good starting point to keep the attention for the children. And we made it in the Open Week for Science and Technology. This year is starting in November, is always in November. As we say, the objectives is dissemination of science at all fields, and the goals, our goals was to contribute to the raise of population awareness for conflicts already existing in the coastal areas, and also try to make their own role in resources and protection, and present also planning instruments. So it's not easy to get something like a map and try to discuss the things like that. It's difficult because our society it's not already has already the tradition to discuss these kind of things. Okay, so what are the outputs? Está-se bem à beira-mar. We have this output for the first 4 years of the scholarity, the output for the second and third cycle of scholarity, and that one for the 2 years, the last 2 years of the Lyceum level. They have the same objective, but the approach is completely different. In the first one, we just present, for instance, Searching for Nemo, very Walt Disney movie, and starting with that, we have several small workshops where we try to make the children see what is good and what is better, what is natural and what is unnatural in the sea and in the coastal areas. Who is responsible for the bad things, and how we can move in order to fix or try to fix those things. And the other ones, we present already implemented tools in terms of integrated coastal management policy and in Portugal, and make them start to argue if they are about or against this kind of interventions. Why? And always try to make them think why. And the other one, we just make it's a very common technique, role-playing technique. We fix, like if we are in a participatory process, we present a case study, a very elaborated and invented case study, and they try to make their own roles. Some of them they are environmental groups, some of them they are the politicians, some of them they are the citizens, some of them are whatever the case study is. In the end, this is just one day, and we think, how they internalize that information. How can they profit from the learning they have done here? So we put all those materials in DVDs, on CDs. They took them to school, and then they start again to do the other things. So this is the output. What we have already learned about it, that we have create a need for this kind of materials from the schools. Because the CD is in the school, some teachers in other years call us and say, we want you to tell us how to deal with this kind of thing. Because sometimes environmental education is connected with something that is fun. This is leisure. This is something that we do just to smile, and we don't think this is the function of environmental education. We want to get citizens well equipped to get better decisions and try to find sustainable and their own role to achieve sustainable development. So the other one, Eco 2004, Eco 2000 Hours, it was developing this year. We just present them to the promoters. It was developed by our department and the Art and Communication department. It was supported by the Carlos Gulbenkian Foundation, who has a quite interesting program, House of Sciences, where all the professors, either from the universities, polytechnics, or Lyceum, can do their own materials and put them there and share with the others. And it's available on the website Casa das Ciências. It's a multimedia application in the terms of environmental education field. And we try to deep the knowledge, scientific knowledge about the decision. If I turn out my the water, how many liters of water shall I use on that time? And if I do it for 5, 6, 7 times in the day, in the end of the day, how many liters of water? And we find out that students, even our students, we test that in the environmental engineer students, and they have no clue. They have no clue about the amount of resources they use each day. Even if they try to spend little, but sometimes just turn just something, we have increasing effects in terms of saving the energy. This is the target, and this is the connection to the process. I tried to call. I don't know if we have here, but.
I don't think we have connection.
Okay, so don't worry. This is just what we have it, and of course is in Portuguese, but I think it's very friendly because it has lots of pictures and we can do it and go around the side. Okay. The other one is focus on our campus. It's quite new. It's a bad heritage in the site selection of campus. If it was now, the campus was not put in this place because those are old salt marshes were filled to put the university over there. So we have this dead body in our school, but we are also. It's important that we give those bad examples to explain how to do and why we should do good decisions. So, for instance, one thing is going on in Campus Exemplar is a multimedia history film showing all the development of the physical development of campus, and with that all the conceptions in that time who put the physical aesthetic of the campus, and turning out to say right now this should be done, or if the decision was done in that moment, will we do in the same way, or will we do with new knowledge in another way? So we have these kind of things. In new buildings, just to turn off, to show you an example, this is medical buildings just going in construction. We use one of the techniques Professor Giacomelli presented here, geothermic, not geothermic like in the volcanic areas, because we don't have it here, but the temperature of the soil, improving the kind of materials was used or has been used in the construction, and trying to save at least 60% of the energy was expected to be consumed if the project was done as the first project presented. So this is one thing going on, well, starting right now. The other one is in old buildings. All the old buildings in the university has been auditing, and in terms of energy, there's been a huge intervention. And for instance, that one is the rectory building. It was in that environmental auditing, they found that they spend 60% more water than should be spent. So right now they are taking measures to do it. The other one is projected uses of public spaces. I don't know if it's the same in Italy, but right now in Portugal it's like a fashion to have urban agriculture. Well, it's quite interesting. It's a very important issue. Right now, if we have this crisis, try to make the things more locally, spend less money, but it's environmental correct. Sometimes these urban agriculture spaces use the public water supply. So it's too much water, too high quality water to the use that should be done. So in the end, if we look to the life cycle, we say that we are not saving, we are spending resources. So our students, and this is made by our students, are in a network for engineering students, are in a network to make projects for development, and they want to try to find a horta, we call it in the university. In that horta, we are trying to first experiment ways to save water and to use soil, the good soil, because we have several examples that those urban agriculture are being done in contaminated soils. So what seems to be a very good experience turns out in public health problems, and all the municipalities are just going in the fashion process. Okay, it's very good, just start, and all the people are very happy to have their urban agriculture. And in the end, what could be the impacts? We are trying to do that in that area. And to finalize, because I talked too much, the other one is on existing uses of protected spaces. And this is my my diamond of the process. Our university has one small salt pan producing salt already in traditional way. So we start the certification of that salt. Right now we are putting salt in the use of the bars and snack bars in the university. We are saving money, but also trying to pass information about a product with being in the Portuguese society is turning the guilty for all the disease in terms of heart disease and blood disease and things like that, because usually we use too much salt. So the campaign is no salt, no salt, no salt. Well, we are trying to clean this campaign and say less salt, better salt. And we are doing that inside of our university, turning with our students, with projects of our students. And also because it's a protective area, we are doing that with trying to make the things. Salt pans are not only producing salt, they make services, nature services, to protect this species. So we are doing some complementary activities inside, and also using much more larger connection with all people. The space is for all people, so also mobility problems are addressing out on the process. So thank you for your attention, and I'm sorry because I speak too much.
Thank you, Filomena, for your presentation. Very interesting, because it's very concrete experience what in your university are doing to involve more students and involve population and involve young people. I think this could be a matter for sharing experience with the people that are at the University of Ravenna on environmental sciences, and you just mentioned the interest in coastal areas, which is the next subject to be treated by Professor Abbiati. Thank you very much for participating. We'll talk about the fragility of a very important ecosystem, the coastal areas. So please, the floor is yours.